In another very special interview here on Leon Live, I have an opportunity to have with us today Richard Coley from TAD. TAD is an architectural design firm that specializes in AV integration and technology. We've had a chance to know Richard for a long time. He's a longtime Leon partner, I guess, would be a lack of a better word, but he's been a real great coach and advocate for us, as we get educated. So I want to give Richard you the floor for a moment, just to introduce yourself, and
Yeah,
then talk a little bit about what we mean by education. You've really kind of shown us quite a bit, which we're always grateful for.
yeah, no problem. I've been I'm a project manager at TAD. I've been in the AV industry uh, for quite some time now. Um, and TAD specifically, we're uh, technology, architecture, design is what TAD stands for. So we are a team of architects, technologists, and graphic designers, and we approach technology integration from a standpoint of integrating into the aesthetics of the architecture. We're trying to we focus on more of the experience of integrating with or interacting with technology, as opposed to the utilitarian aspects. We're not divorced from the utilitarian aspects, but we try to take it a step further for our clients who want that level of further integration, finer touch, and just a feel of this was purposeful. This was a very
Right.
purposeful design. Um,
I think that's something that's always impressed me about TAD and you in particular is that technology architecture design equation really equates to seeing spaces differently. And this is less about, hey, what can we jam in here? It's far more about intentional and purposeful and spaces that ultimately achieve a higher objective, which is engagement. It is being able to do the things in the business. Business wants to get done. Um,
mm,
you have graphic design is kind of a unique one, because from a creative perspective, that means I always think of artists and I think of craftspeople. And
mhm.
when we were sitting in New York City not too long ago, I remember you talking about artistry, and space. Um, Develop that idea a little bit more. What are you seeing in the spaces you're working on with regards to the advent of art and artistry?
Well, I mean, the beyond just the overall development of wanting to incorporate digital art into our technology designs, that's something that our clients are getting into. There is an investment that people are making in digital art, digital artists, and they want to incorporate those into the space. And so now, when we have these just conference rooms or technology engaged spaces in public spaces, transit spaces, uh, we can't just have a TV on the wall playing the art or having that interactive art exhibit. Even if it's a dual purpose space where it's like we're not being used, but we have digital art up, and now we're going to be using it for utilitarian purpose, whether it's communicating information, using it for video conferencing, or for teaching purposes. That when it's in the off state or when it's in the in between use state, there's a desire for it to blend into the architecture, for it to
Yeah.
feel like it is meant to be here, as opposed to an afterthought, or we have to have this because we need to know the train times, or we need to know
Yeah.
um, like we need to share a PowerPoint presentation. So when that's not being used, how do we kind of make it feel purposeful and like it has a purpose beyond just that utility?
There's almost an inconsistency when you try to sort of use that display for art and the room just isn't tuned for it. It's like all of a sudden we have a TV and art, but it's like you look around the rest of the space and you're like, wow, this is just not presented in a way that even makes sense.
That's correct. And so
Yeah.
there is that blending. So, getting to what we're talking about today, which is the edge frame,
Mhm.
uh, the there's that helps with the transition between the digital and the material world. So, being able to match the aesthetics of the space between that transit moment, so the border around it or how things are fitting into the space, that helps you to feel like um, it's not disconnected. And then
Yeah.
the architects that we're working with, are also designing these spaces to have a character, to have a personality to it. And it's gone beyond just aesthetics of, we've chosen this color palette, we've chosen this thing. We're finding that spaces are becoming much more personalized in the corporate environments
Yeah.
to differentiate not just between client facing spaces and uh, employee spaces only, but within the employee spaces, here's a space that, like, oh, our New York office has this theme or has this personality to it. Or as you're going floor by floor or department by department, they're allowing for individualistic characters or styles to come out in spaces. And so now, we get
Yeah.
into this world of corporate standards. We want to standardize on one thing, but how do we still have that adapt and fit into all these unique spaces?
Yeah.
And that's where we've been able to work with Leon to go beyond your custom materials catalog.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you and I have talked about that before, where
Right.
when we're working with architects, they always ask, like, "Oh, well, what's the custom materials that uh,
Yeah.
Leon can utilize?" And we're like, "Well, here's a starting point. Here's the catalogs of things that they have on hand, but if we want to match your fabric, or if there's any other fabric out there, the weave, the thickness, or the color quality, or the texture,
Yeah.
we can go beyond. We can do whatever we want." There's an example of a project where the oak that y'all have, the white oak,
Yeah.
wasn't quite the right grain, and so now the architect's like, "Well, we're using tree frog, um, white oak number whatever."
Right.
And so you guys procured the veneer, and now the material is going to be a
It's
exact
intentional.
match of the grain structure, and yeah, it's intentional. So it allows the architects to say, "Oh, I can specify that transition, and I can have my own uh, touch on this, as opposed to making compromises."
100%. Wow. You couldn't have described, the colors, material, finish equation any better. And those extreme cases are really the beauty of, I think, the Leon brand is our willingness to take a base platform and then provide customization levels to it, and being able to
Mhm.
scale it, for mass deployment. Really comes down to understanding what the design aesthetic in the space actually happens to be. There's one more topic I want to hit today, and we're going to do a follow up subsequent, much more in depth interview. But today, I'd like to talk about some of the cases in the rooms themselves that are where real estate is being challenged and it's coming at a premium. We don't have the luxury of just wide open spaces like we've had. We have to design in a tighter environment. What are you
Yeah.
seeing with regards to real estate?
Well, I actually would say there's two things on the real estate front. There's real estate, the physical real estate, but then there's the technology real estate. Um, we, you know, People are wanting the spaces more sparse. They want it more flexible. Furniture has changed out, like I mentioned. Rebranding is more than just changing your name, your header, or color or font style. It's also changing company culture, personality, even just within an architectural space, updating the furniture, changing things out to be either more modern or to fit within a personality style that the new branding is requiring. And so people don't want our technology sitting in credenzas anymore. They might not even want credenzas anymore. They want a cleaner space. We're going through an age of minimalism right now in architecture. Things are getting flatter, but that'll shift. And so having the ability to kind of have a minimal footprint in the room and have the technology be not so uh, anchored to
Yeah.
specific places in the room. Like before, you have the credenza rack, you have the wiring coming into that, and you can't change the credenza unless you unwire the whole rack and then bring in a new unit that's big enough to hold the previous credenza, or if you want to do potentially
Yeah.
$1 million technology upgrade. Um, no, that's for a very those are for much higher end boardrooms, but
Yeah.
nevertheless,
It's
there is a
applicable.
cost factor.
Yeah.
But then also we're seeing the footprint of technology becoming minimal. Uh, you know, Gone are the days where I had a full rack of amplifiers, DSPs, video matrix, USB matrix, control processors, um, like power distribution. This thing that would take up quite a bit of space is now being compressed into a few devices that need to be located either at the table or the display.
Yeah.
And they actually have quite rigid requirements of cable distance because it's becoming a little bit more of a consumer device in the mass deployed rooms.
Yeah.
And then in the larger rooms, they're becoming more simplified
Mm.
into a few boxes or a few devices that have a lot of interconnectivity between them. And so, do we ask for a three or four, well, 2 to 3 stud depth wall so that we can have in wall boxes with displays and niches? We can't go in a credenza because they don't want to give us a credenza. And putting things under the table, we're having these very light tables with very thin metal legs. So
Yeah.
we're losing real estate for the
Gotta get
sake of
smarter. Yeah.
physical aesthetics and flexibility. And so, how do we kind of manage that? Is we start getting into the furniture game.
Yeah.
We start becoming
Yeah.
an element in the space that is just as flexible and malleable, but also gives the architects enough design options where they can truly integrate it into the space.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think underscoring, when you say we get into furniture, what we're saying is AV tech has to pass through a conversation around fixtures, furnitures, consoles, all the things that happen there. I want to thank you for your time today. This has been incredibly valuable. It's part of, again, our Edge Connect launch. We're going to do a subsequent follow-up interview with you and dive in a lot deeper. You've got a tremendous amount of knowledge. I want to do a panel. We'll get Rob and a couple of other people together and really explore some topics.
yeah.
You're going to be at InfoComm?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll even, if it's okay, I'll plug myself. Me and a colleague are teaching a class on designing large format displays, everything from projectors to large LCDs to video walls, and the math behind it. So
Super. What day is your session?
it's Tuesday at 1:30.
Tuesday 1:30, folks. All right, we'll make sure we put it in the post subsequent to this, and
Thanks.
we'll see you next week, Richard. I'm looking forward to it. If you just hang with me,